What's good with y'all boys? Welcome back to another episode of Rand Everything Sports Podcast. Before the video gets started, y'all make sure y'all subscribe down there. We're currently 4 subscribers away from 100. That's been a big goal for Ray and I, the better half of about 4.5 months. So we really appreciate y'all if y'all do subscribe down there. Get us to 100, that'd be huge. But in this video today, I'm going to break down who has the most to gain and who has the most to lose. So starting off with the most to lose, there's really 2 guys for me. Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. Starting off with Brock Purdy. Listen, if Brock Purdy wins this game, he will solidify himself as the future quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Now listen, no matter what, after this year, they cannot pay him just because that's how the contract goes. He cannot get they can't sign him to a big deal quite yet. Now after this year, they can. But if he wins a ring for him, listen, this is a franchise who's been so close for so long. Their last championship was with Steve Young in 1991. And they were just in the Super Bowl 4 years ago. I mean, look at last year. They were playing a great game against the Eagles team, and then Purdy blew out his arm. You look at it in 2022 when they played the Rams. They were dropped interception away from probably going back to the Super Bowl. So this team has been on the edge for so long. And if Purdy can be the guy to help them push over, like I said, he'll solidify himself as the future at the quarterback position for this Niners team. And I mean, he'd be proving a lot of people wrong. Not me, because I never said he couldn't win a championship. I said if they don't, he'd be the reason, not they couldn't with him. So he wouldn't be proving me wrong, but he would be proving a lot of guys wrong. He just would. Listen, he'd have a Super Bowl in his first full year for starting. And you can even say last year they could have won it if it wasn't for him blowing out his arm. Now, they would have lost to the Chiefs, but listen, there's hypotheticals all the time. You could have said that, hey, this guy maybe could have won it last year if it wasn't for his arm getting blown off. Not getting blown off, but with his arm getting, exploding, his muscle, just failing on him. So I think Brock Purdy is one of the guys, him and Kyle Shanahan, have the most to gain. Now moving on to the head coach, Kyle Shanahan. Now listen, no matter what, if you're going to lose to a team, if you're going to lose 2 Super Bowls, well, 2 Super Bowls as a head coach, you're never fine with losing Super Bowls. But if you had to lose to somebody, it'd be Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City Chiefs team. I mean, listen, this is a very dynastic team right now. And if they do win this next Super Bowl, talking about the Chiefs, then they'll be just an outright dynasty. 3 and 5 years, ridiculous. So, but back to Kyle Shanahan. I mean, listen, this is the guy who was the offensive coordinator for Atlanta when they blew a 28-3 lead against the Patriots. And the game turned on one of his decisions. You're in field goal range, or you're right on the edge of field goal range. You need about 5-6 yards to get a for sure solid, feel comfortable field goal. You drop back to pass, and you get strip sacked. And that kind of changed the game, Because at that point, I'm not sure how much you were up by, but the lead was already dwindling. And you were already starting to lose some grip on that lead. So I didn't like the decision then. I don't like it now. And then he blew a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl in 2019. They were up 20-10 with about 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And we know what they run. Chiefs run a wasp concept, hit Tyreek on that big play. Williams, 2 touchdowns. After that, the rest is kind of history. Listen, this is a guy who's 1-31 when trailing by 5 or more in the fourth quarter. And he was until the Green Bay game 0-31 when trailing by 5 or more. So this guy, listen, I heard it on First Things First. Kevin Wilde said this. I love that show. Nick Wright, Chris Bouchard, all those guys. I love them. He said they can be up and he'd be nervous, and they're going to be down and he's going to be nervous. Because he's blown leads in the Super Bowl, and he's also not been known to be the guy who can come back at all. So no matter how this game's going, he's going to be nervous. He's not going to be easy rested until the game's over. And that's if they win. If they lose, he's going to be crushed. Now listen, if he wins this, he'd have the most gain because he would beat a dynastic team in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Kelsey, and Steve Spagnuolo in that defense. Listen, this would be a huge win, and you'd be like, damn, that's a hell of a win. Considering that Patrick Mahomes, the type of trajectory that he's on right now, I mean, this would be a magnificent win for Kyle Shanahan if he does knock that off. Now, those are the 2 guys who I think have the most to gain. Now, you could also say they have the most to lose. But we're talking about the most to lose, I'm sorry. Those guys have the most to lose. Also, the most to gain is back to Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. Same reason I just named. Brock Purdy, if they lose, I mean, listen, if they lose this game, it'll mostly be on Purdy. It just will. I don't see them losing. Okay, I see them losing in ways, but if they do lose for sure, I think you can put the blame on Brock Purdy. And I do think they'll look at them. What was the handicap or what was the crutch for this team? Brock Purdy. That's just simple. So if they do lose, it'll be mostly on Brock Purdy. That's just my prediction. Now, he's had 2 overall poor playoff games. You look at the first one this year against Green Bay. He was terrible for 3.5 quarters. He just was. He had one great drive, and yes, it was a great drive. Season on the line, so much pressure. You're only making about $800,000 a year compared to the other quarterbacks. That's chump change. If you don't, if you get upset by the 7th seed after the Cowboys just did, listen, you would have not been feeling good going into the offseason as their franchise quarterback and as their future quarterback. But to his credit, you go 6 for 7. The only incompletion being a drop to George Kittle. You go 6 for 7, have a big run to set up Christian McCaffrey's rushing touchdown. You made all the plays you needed to, so you got to give him credit for that. But then against Detroit, another terrible first half. Just awful. But also to his credit, he comes back out in the second half, brushes it off, short-term memory, and makes a lot of great plays to will his team to victory. So, once again, you've got to give him credit for that as well. And listen, like I said, he's only had 1 good drive and about 2 good quarters. So, honestly, it doesn't matter if they win or lose, in my opinion. If they lose, I think a lot of the story will be about Kyle Shanahan and all things like that. And also, you lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, to Mahomes and all that. So, you can't fault them too much for that. But if they lose and he plays bad or poorly, he's going to get crushed. He's going to get crushed. If he has a stat line of 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 216 yards, he's going to get crushed for it. He just is, But if he has a good game and they lose, he's fine. As long as Brock Purdy plays decent to well, he will be fine. So listen, those are the 2 guys who I think have the most to gain and lose. Most to gain and lose, Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan. Simple as that. Now, that is going to be the end of the video, man. Like I said, y'all make sure y'all subscribe down there, like, share with your grandma, mom, girlfriend, auntie, dad, uncle, grandpa, whoever is in your family, whoever you're close to. Y'all help y'all boys out, man. 4 subscribers away from 100. But we appreciate y'all watching, and as always,